Reception Home Learning Week 4, Finding Half. Hello Reception. This week in Maths we're learning about halving. I don't know if you can remember just before the schools closed, but we did some work that looked like this. Can you see it? It's a ladybird. It has some dots on one wing, then it has the same number of dots on the other wing. We started off with the dots on one wing, we drew the dots on the other wing, and we found out how many altogether. On this one you can see there were 3 and 3, and that made 6. And can you remember? We called that doubling. Now halving is like the opposite of doubling. So to start with, we're going to talk about some important words that we need to understand when we're doing work on halving. Let me see what I've got here. The first very important word, if I show it to you, is half. If we're doing halving, we're doing it because we want to find half. Half is when we split up a whole thing, like a whole biscuit or a whole cake or a whole pizza. Half is when we cut it down the middle and we make 2 equal parts. Each part is half. So that's another important word we need. Equal parts. If we have a whole and we cut it into 2 equal parts, that means they're the same size, then that gives us half and another half. Another important word is when we're doing work on finding half and we're cutting things up or we're sharing them out, that is halving. That's the word we use for that. And another important word, or 2 important words together, is equal sharing. If we've got some sweets and we want to find half and there's 2 people sharing it, we have to share them out equally to find out what half is. It's all about making it fair. Now, to help me with my halving activities today, I've got a couple of people for you to meet. This one here is Jim, and this one here is Rosie. And Rosie and Jim have to share. First, we're going to find out about finding half of a shape. If you have some Play-Doh, you can have fun rolling it out, making shapes and cutting them in half. Watch this. I think I'll use a circle cutter. There. I've made my circle and now I'm going to cut it in half. Very carefully so they're equal. There. Half for Rosie, half for Jim. Can you see? They're the same size. If I put them on top of each other, they are the same. Half and half. Together they make a whole. Now watch while I make some other shapes. I'm going to cut some of my shapes in half, but some of them are not going to be equal parts, so that isn't half. See if you can work out which ones are half and which ones aren't half. Yes, Rosie and Jim are both happy with that. They've got an equal part. Rosie and Jim are happy with that one too. That's fair. Rosie and Jim aren't very happy with that one. They don't think that they've got half each. The parts don't look equal. Rosie and Jim aren't happy with this one either. They don't think their parts look the same size and shape at all. Oh, that's much better. Those two look like equal halves. Rosie thinks it's fair and Jim thinks it's fair. Now we're going to find out about finding half of a group of objects. Sometimes Rosie and Jim need to share numbers of objects. Instead of shapes, they need to share out numbers of objects. And they're going to use beans to help them to share today. And the first number of beans they have is, can you see, 4. So let's count up 4 beans together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now Rosie and Jim want to try and grow a beanstalk, but they each want to grow their own beanstalk, so they need to share out the beans so it's fair. So let's share them out. 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie, 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie. So Jim has got half and Rosie has got half. Can you see how many Jim has got? That's right, he's got 2. Can you see how many Rosie has got? That's right, she's got 2. They have got half each, and we can say that half of 4 is 2, because Jim has half and Rosie has half. Let's try that with another number. Put those ones back. Here's another number, number 8. So let's count out 8 beans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So remember, Jim wants half, Rosie wants half. When we find half, we split a group of objects into 2 equal parts. So let's share them out one by one. 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie, 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie, 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie, 1 for Jim, 1 for Rosie. So now Jim has half and Rosie has half. Let's count and see what half of 8 equals. So Jim has 1, 2, 3, 4. And Rosie has 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that half of 8 is 4. Let's do that one more time. Let's start with the number 10. So I need to count out 10 beans. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's share them out. Should we start with Rosie this time? 1 for Rosie, 1 for Jim. 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 So to find out half of 10, we need to count how many beans Rosie has and how many beans Jim has. So let's count Rosie's beans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She's got 5. So half of 10 must be 5. Let's just check that Jim has the same, because he should have, because half is all about equal parts. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Jim has 5 too. So half of 10 equals 5, because this is half and this is half. 2 halves go together to make a whole. Oh, when I'm looking at this, it reminds me of something we learn about in school a lot. Do you remember learning about part whole models? This is my part whole model, and when we're doing halving, the parts have to be equal to each other, and they are half of the whole. It's your turn to have a go at halving now. You could find half of all sorts of different things in your house. You can count objects out and split them up. You can cut things in half like I did. There's lots of ideas on the home learning sheet. Have a good look at that and see what you can do, and then tell us about what you have learned.